Hey, you're listening to Stop the Scroll, a social media marketing podcast, and I'm your host, Heidi Schmidt. I'm a social media strategist and agency owner with over 15 years of marketing experiences helping businesses grow online. We'll be diving into what you need to know so that you can show up confidently online without the overwhelm. Get your notebook ready to jot down some amazing marketing gems, and let's dive into it. Welcome back to another episode of Stop the Scroll. I'm your host, Heidi Schmidt, and today I want to talk about a mindset that I talk with a lot of clients about. And I don't know if I've actually talked about this yet, but I've talked about this in a couple of talks that I've done and a couple of workshops, and I am going to talk about it today to kind of get me ready for this will go live after I speak at this conference, this women's leadership conference, but we're going to kind of talk about it a little bit, because it's going to be a component of that talk. I have said for a really long time, and lots of social media experts that I follow have been saying this for a really long time, but us business owners kind of have the wrong mindset about social media. And here's the undeniable truth about social media is that social media can feel overwhelming when you think of it as just another task. Just another task in your business, just another thing to do, check off your list, yada, yada, yada. But when we start to think about it as a tool to humanize our brand, that's when the magic happens. When business owners adapt this creator mindset, and we see this a lot, you build better connections. And I try to do this as much as I can with my clients. Some clients are easier than others, especially if I get lots of great information from them. And when I say creator, everyone's like, oh, I don't want to be an influencer. You don't have to be an influencer. I promise. You don't have to shill all of the cheap crap from China, which is kind of how a lot of people perceive a lot of influencers, especially on TikTok and Instagram. You're just, sidebar coming early, but here's my question of the day. Where do these influencers get all of the money to constantly be doing all of these hauls? And what do they do with everything? Do they return it? Is this the reason why Target has clamped down on their return policy? Can we have a real discussion about this? If you have questions like I do, and I say this because let's go back a little while, and this is a total sidebar before I kind of get into this. About 15 years ago, I wanted to be an influencer. I wanted to be someone who got paid to create just lifestyle content. That is what I wanted, but I am far too introverted for that. And I did not view myself as being stylish enough to be a style blogger. I did not want to be a mommy blogger when I had my son. That was not a route that I wanted to take because I didn't want to share that much of my life. Plus, have you seen the judgment that those mommy bloggers go through? Oh my goodness. But and I tell this story, and I don't know if it has, I posted something for a client, and we kind of made it really personal because I know her very well. And we very much hit on the pain point of what she was trying to talk about, the pain point that she wanted to use to connect with her audience. And literally, I don't think I've ever seen someone comment I need this. But when you personalize it and when you kind of get that creator mindset, how do I bring the personal into the business? That's when you make those connections with your audience and make them realize ha ha ha, that big bad light bulb moment. So when I say a creator mindset, with business owners, we're constantly thinking of social media as a tool to just sell, to sell our offers, to sell our whatever. But a creator mindset is a little bit different. And I say this because ultimately, I tell all of my clients this, and some of them understand it much better than others, that people go to social media because they want connection. They don't just want products, and they don't just want services. They're not all into spending money because we know the economy is kind of in the gutter right now. But they want to connect with brands, whether they work with you tomorrow or whether they work with you 2 years from now. They're going to follow you along your journey, and they're going to build that connection and want to be a part of whatever it is that you do, right? And when I say creator mindset, I mean, okay, what story, what perspective, what value, how can I bring the personal into the professional? And there was a really great podcast that I was listening to recently that, like, for the past 5 years, we've all been into like educational content, like how-to content, all of this stuff. But people don't necessarily, like, we're tired. We're just tired, you know? And it's not about being an influencer. It's not about being a creator, but it's about having that creator mindset, which is that creators focus on the connection and the value. They focus on that first, and then they weave in whatever offer they have. You know, everyone's an expert in something. And I like this quote that I found when I was researching this and thinking about it. And it's not about being an influencer, it's about being influential. So what story or what perspective can I share that connects to my audience and speaks to them today? So, like, I've seen so many great examples online recently. I can't even begin to list them, but it's definitely a shift in mindset because a lot of business owners, you're just checking the box. I'm just showing up today. And, you know, I have a friend who has business, and when she shares like the personal, she does her own social media. When she shares the personal, like, holy gangbusters engagement, Batman. Like, I don't know how it does for her sales, but like, she gets a lot of good engagement and her audience feels connected to her. And when they feel connected to you, like, they're more likely to connect, right? Like, they're more likely to want to work with you or buy from you if they feel connected to you. And here's the thing, and I get this. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking, person listening to this, but I don't want to share my whole life on social media. I'm not saying that you have to. Like, you don't have to share your deepest, darkest secrets. Like, no one has to know your dirty laundry. We'll leave it at that. I was like thinking of the right term there. But it's about showing the human. It's about sharing your values, sharing your humor, sharing the lessons that you've learned along the way. Like, I am not going to lie. I was listening to this podcast before this, and she was talking about carousels and how you kind of tell your story. And I was like, wow, I haven't posted anything for myself online this week because I honestly haven't had time. And if you want to know what I've been doing, like, one, I'm running a political campaign, which since this weekend has been 3 hours on Monday, 3 hours on Tuesday, actually a little bit more than that, maybe 4 hours on Tuesday, 4 hours on Wednesday, say 5 hours on Wednesday. Tonight's going to be probably another 3 hours because I got to dial for dollars. Maybe in 2 hours, 3 hours tomorrow. So you're talking like close to like 20 to 25 hours a week is my, you know, what my campaign is kind of sucking out of my time. So, you know, over the past 2 weeks, I've onboarded 2 new clients, which involves a lot of strategy work, getting them all set up, getting the team set up. I have interviewed 2 people for my team. I'm going to make an offer probably to one of them to start just to onboard to see how it goes. And then I am going to make another change on my team probably shortly thereafter. That's a lot. But I was listening to this podcast and I was like, wow, I really need to be sharing that because I feel like there's a lot of business owners, you know, there's a lot of overwhelm just in business by itself, right? So like for me, it could be something like, you know, maybe in my creator mindset, instead of saying like, oh, come work with me to take social media off your plate, you know, instead, like, here's how having a team behind your social media, whether you outsource or hire someone in-house, can help relieve the stress of showing up online every day. P.S. You don't have to show up online every day. Like, you know, like that is not something that you have to do. Creators, talking about that creator mindset, they don't let perfect be the enemy of good. They post, they learn, and then they improve. They don't overthink. I mean, maybe they do, but like they're more concerned with just kind of getting it out there. And on social media, things do not have to be perfect. We know this. I tell clients this all the time, like, oh my God, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Literally, I was talking with one of my teammates about this the other day, about some edits that we repeatedly get from one client, and the edits just feel very mundane. And in the grand scheme of things, no one cares. No one's going to care. I mean, unless like we are like way grammatically off base, like that's totally fine. Please correct our grammar. But in the grand scheme of things, like changing something on a reel or changing the wording on a carousel, like it's not going to make a big difference. So don't overthink. That's another creator mindset. So instead, you're going to shift from selling to storytelling. So I'm trying to think of a good example. I'm really bad off the cuff. I'm sorry. So an example that I got when I was outlining this with ChatGPT was, instead of here's my coaching program, try here's how coaching helped me go from stressed and stuck to running my business with clarity, which is really something that like my own business coach could say, like, here's, instead of here's my coaching program, here's the coaching program that I wish I had to get clarity when I first started my business, like it's a little shift, but it's something that builds that connection, like the connection and the curiosity. Finding that everyday inspiration. And I'm really, I do this much better. I've actually started showing up more consistently over on my campaign page, but that doesn't help my business. So, I like the idea of finding that everyday inspiration. We can have content calendars and everything. And I tell my clients this all the time, like we leave room for things that inspire you. If you have a conversation with a client and you're like, hey, this would make a really good social media post. I was actually telling this to one of my new clients that I onboarded. Like, one, you can take a short video, or two, just brain dump in an email and send it to us. I flipping love that because it lets me get into your brain. It lets me understand how you think and how you tell your audience, the things that they connect with. If you're on the phone with a prospect and they're telling you something like, and your like light bulb moment, like, please share that with us. I tell that to multiple clients every week. Finally, like, I always, and I tell clients this also, I've mentioned this before, I don't typically do engagement for clients. And the reason why is because it's always going to be more authentic coming from you, not me, because you're the expert. You're the one who actually has something valuable to say. Now, years ago, like you could just drop emojis on comments and that would be fine. But these days, that doesn't fly so much. People think that it's a bot, and you don't want to be a bot because you are a business owner and human being with real feelings and real things to say. So when you're commenting and engaging with people, tell them what resonated with you. Sometimes I do just leave emojis, but it's usually like people that I know and they know that's like, that's my style. But it's only for certain people. Like other people, I will be like, oh my God, this resonated with me. Like that was spot on. Loved blah, blah, blah. Like I do engage like a human being, not just in emojis. Emojis are the lazy engagement. And sometimes that is me, but sometimes I also engage like a human. I love this idea. And I was recently listening to a podcast. I was listening to Shannon McKinstry's podcast earlier, and she was talking about how TikTok is her playground. And I have the same mentality. Like, and this is one of the things that came up in my outline when I was doing some research. Like, treat content like we can have our strategies, like we can be strategic and everything, but ultimately play around with what works. Treat social media a little bit like a creative sandbox, because here's the thing, like we know that the platforms, they're taking sand out of the sandbox, they're leaving next to nothing. They might add in a couple of toys, they might add in more sand and take out the toys, like the platforms are changing their algorithms like, they change their underwear. So when we allow ourselves to be a little bit more creative and experiment, it becomes a little more fun. Like anytime I'm experimenting with anything, it's probably going to be on stories or it's going to be on TikTok. And I liked what Shannon said in her podcast, she's like, I just post everything to TikTok that I post on Instagram. And she's like, and it doesn't always resonate, like whatever, it doesn't always perform. She's like, but I want to see what does perform. And it's true. Like, and this is where we talk about, multi-purpose and repurposing and all of the things. Work smarter, not harder. Like, treat content like a sandbox and test out different platforms. You don't have to be everywhere, but like play around, see what works. I don't know. Measure, and this is the importance of social media. Like, no matter what you're doing, like, you have to see if it works, right? You have to see, like, okay, I tried posting a reel a day for 5 days, blah, blah, blah. We know that didn't work for me. Ask if it sparked conversation. Ask, when you're looking at whether a piece of content worked, and this is true pretty much anywhere, like, okay, you sent an email. Did you get replies? Did you get conversions? You posted a new reel format. Like, did you get more engagement? Did you get more shares? Did you get more comments? Did you shared an offer in a carousel in a way that you haven't before? Did people DM you about it? Like, don't just measure your analytics, but measure in actual connections. Finally, like, let's shift our mindset. No one wants to be an influencer unless you do. No judgment. No judgment if you do want to be an influencer. But we as business owners need to shift our mindset around social media. Instead of viewing it as a burden, it is a touch point. It's a way to connect with your ideal audience. Instead of thinking, I have nothing to say, or, oh my God, my makeup's not on, shift it to, this is going to be a little relatable. There's someone that's going to relate to this. And ultimately, my audience wants to know the people behind the business. So think about it from that perspective. And, if you don't beat yourself up if you miss a day or two posting. Like, you don't need to beat yourself up. Finally, when we think about storytelling, and this was a big thing, and a lot of the people that I follow on social media talk about this, instead of that how-to content, like, oh, let's be educational, let's always teach, like, here's how to flip it to be a little bit more relatable and personal and a little bit more valuable. So, like, if you had a couple of examples that I came up with, thank you to Margot, my assistant. I like this one, like, how I show up on social media on days that I don't feel like posting. And that could be, for me, I could talk about the value of Instagram stories and how stories don't have to be polished, but you can really sell in them and you can really build that connection. You could do something about how I built X without some sort of misconception, because people are going to be like, oh, but I thought, instead of being like, how to build whatever, how I learned something the hard way. And I have been learning a big lesson about a new offer that I just did this year, and it was a tough lesson. Mainly about my capacity and what I thought I had capacity for and how I didn't. And it also made me realize that, like, I need not just like a content creator on my team, but I need someone that I can like brain dump to. I need someone who I can like go to and say, hey, can you help me with XYZ? Total sidebar here. But the hook here that I had written down really kind of resonated with that. And then, how I knew my content was finally connecting. Hint, it wasn't likes, it was messages like blah, blah, blah. And for someone in another type of business, maybe you're a coach, it could be, how I knew thinking, how I knew my client was going to accomplish their goals. Hint, it wasn't just because their revenue was up. Maybe they retained clients or something like that, But yeah, make your advice sound a little bit more like storytelling. You're going to get better connection. And when you have better connection, people watch your content longer and they read it and they engage with it and it performs better. So don't be afraid to tell those stories through your hooks. In closing, I challenge you to share a story on your social media that blends the personal with the professional. Something that starts with maybe like how I or why I shifted or, something like that. And don't be afraid to tag me. I'd love to see your content if you're listening, see how you take away these little tips and tricks that I give out here. If you love the podcast, always, always, always love reviews, subscribers, share it on social, all the fun things. And until next time, go forth, create amazing content that connects with your audience and stops the scroll. Bye for now.